Hello, friends. This is an addendum on that rioting that's going on in India. That some insecure history idiots are trying to insult Prophet Muhammad. Oh man. All right. So going back, the lifestyle of others outside of Islam are not as does not qualify you, no matter who you are, East, West, Asians, to come and criticize Islam. You see, we know your life. I did mention that, uh, on their temples, uh, there are statues of men, practicing with teenage girls. You may say, oh, they're small stature women. No, folks. Westerners in particular, I think English do, and some Germans and French do, know their histories, their sexual history, or that of Europe or that of America. When I came to France myself, I landed in France in 1981, in June, sometime in June in 1981. I was began to be shocked by these, extremely liberal sexualities of the state, and I said that in my earlier video, the previous video. So and your history and your documents, and even in the Bibles, right? In your Bibles, right? Have you guys read Lot and his practices after his wife supposedly was converted, changed into a pillar of salt? Or Solomon, and his Song of Songs? Okay, well, this is not what it is. What this video is about is hijab, really cover. It seems to me like in the West there is no full understanding. They criticize hijab and they tend to look away or disregard or not even ponder what's going on in the world, such as genocide, such as gulags, such as ethnic cleansing, such as religious racism, which is really far more malignant and sinister than skin racism or race racism, right? And they seem to have focused on the hijab, right? Which is really not a problem. I mean, if a woman puts hijab outside and then at her house, she releases it, or at a friend's house or something like that. You yourself do not know or understand that this is not hurting a woman, really. So let's go back. In hijab guarantees certain things. You may think it doesn't have purpose in Islam. No, it does. It guarantees the stability of the family, meaning we don't just have head veil and like discreet dress and so on, but we also have what's called non-interaction, meaning you can only interact with a woman based on business, if you work in a place, if you're a doctor, other than that, there's no free liberal, hooking up with a girl and talking to her out of the blues. Don't even do that. You may think that's shutting down liberties and freedom and clamping down on the human psyche and so on. No, folks. Because if you allow that to happen, that's when a family is destroyed. Because a man or even a woman, they're always looking for something better. It's in our psyche, like to improve on our situation, on our blah, blah. Guess who suffers, right? Guess who suffers? The children do. When a marriage breaks up, nobody is more devastated in a marriage breaking up than the children. If a woman, or a man for that matter, cheats on the other partner, they are not hurting the other partner like the wife hurting the husband or the husband hurting the wife. No. When they do cheat on each other, they are hurting the children, not the parents. No, not the partner. There is no, once one of the two partners goes out, outside of the marriage, sanctimony of the marriage, and they begin to cheat and have like freedom and sex, whatever it is, you can take these words and write them into a book. That's Holly book. Make Holly book out of it. There's no longer a family. The family, if it stays together, it'll break up sooner or later. Two, once you cross that line, you crossed it, right? Meaningly, if you do it the first time and eventually you realize, you wake up next day, you survived, you didn't die, you didn't get punished, blah, 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 blah. Guess what? The second time is much easier. So in Islam, these two things have purpose. The head veil. Now, why don't we cover the man's head veil? Because man is the one that who seeks more than the woman does, right? And a man is always a challenging person. We were meant to be promiscuous, like a woman produces one embryo a month, a man produces billion of sperms a day, right? Man is meant to be polygamous. A woman is meant to have her offspring, that's her building, that's her security structure, that's her psychological home, that's her children. So when a hijab is dictated, it guarantees that, and the separation between the sexes, right? We separate between the sexes because when we're not talking, our unconscious is always observing, scanning for, like a better partner or a suitable partner. Now you may think that's animalistic. Well, we have that in us, but there's something about man and a woman when they're looking, our unconscious are always looking for what's called a suitable genetic makeup, meaning a woman is always looking for a good-looking man, for a strong man, for a provider, and so on and so forth, which means in her psychological, she knows that she can get better children from that man than another. So we men are the same. When we look at women, right, while we're talking, and so on, so our unconscious is assessing that particular woman, whether she can make a better mother, she can have better children, and so on. So it's built into us. That's our evolution. You may say, "Oh, evolution is against your religion." Oh, you don't know, folks. You don't know my religion, because if you knew, you wouldn't even criticize it. Or you can criticize it, but the answer will come straight through. So nonetheless, here's what Islam guarantees for a woman: is every woman is entitled for children. You may say, that's oxymoron. No, folks. What I mean by that, it literally or almost always guarantees that the woman, right, gets married by way of social connections, by religious connections, by so on and so forth. Sure, we're polygamist, and then polygamy is everywhere, really. Westerners and Easterners cannot criticize us because last I looked here in the United States, when I came to the West, in France and here and there, that fidelity to the house is not even there. What I mean by that is this: while people are married, they still cheat, so you're polygamist, right? But we Muslims are declared responsible for it. We don't polygamize unless we're married, right? Now that's not really practiced much any longer. Why? Because there's so much like worries of life, and you have to provide, and so on and so forth. So in Islam, we won't get married until we are able to provide. Now, if money becomes very a lot and so on, you will see like people becoming polygamous. So it guarantees woman in Islam is almost always guaranteed provision as well as children, marriage. Sometimes, not anymore, probably now, she has to share. All right. So the hijab and separation of the sexes guarantees that when you are married, when you have children, you're prevented from entering that mix-up or mingling realm between man and woman. Hence, your psyche and mind begins to realize that this is it, this is my family, this is my wife, this is my so on and so forth. And same for women. Women are far more prone to having to cheat than men do, as a matter of fact, because they are easily persuaded by a strong man. Let's put it this way: a powerful man and so on can easily put, like impress on a woman, and then women respond by hormonal changes right there and then. Uh, Now going back about tough women that sometimes really needs to be impressed, like even slapped sometimes. Well, I don't slap women. I never slapped women. I don't recommend that. But in the olden days, some women used to be warriors, like they stood in a fight, and uh, battled it out with men on horseback and so on, and killed and got killed and so on. So that kind of woman is not going to be impressed by a wimp. Wimps, wimps have a problem being handled or accepted by like really tough women, right? Now here's an example. I have a friend here, an ex colleague whose origins and name is from Holland. Not Deutschland or Germany, but from Netherlands. He's American, right? And then he was like into wars in the Middle East and so on. Apparently a soldier. So he got married to a Middle Eastern woman. I don't know how, but he got married to a Middle Eastern woman. Now, this Middle Eastern woman, he brings her back here into the United States, and she bears him children and so on. But eventually they got divorced. And then I heard him complaining that she called him all kind of names, right? Like you fucking miserable shit, or you dumb, like she always slapped him, like not slapped him. I don't know, maybe she did, but like she talked him down like he was a dog or an animal. And in my mind, I was like, you don't know, right? Certain Middle Eastern women or European women for that matter, or whoever it is, uh, you really have to impress on them that they cannot come at you. So the marriage, like if you ever imagine marriage as love, oh my dear, I'm home and I'm not home and shit like that. Marriage life is not like that all the time. The first couple of years are hormones are confused for love. Then after that, it's reality, right? Settling down and it's rational thinking. In Islam, there's, in the Quran and in Sunnah, there's no between man and woman. There's no such concept of love as is understood in the West. There is sukun, yaskuna ilayha, meaningly you begin to accept it in your psyche as what he was saying in the Quran, and later on in the marriage, as if there is our psyche, unlike our bodies, right? There is in our unconscious and psyche, they connect, right? I mean, really physically, but without us sensing, of course. There begin to be attachment and mission, right? And that becomes a permanent bond, right? And that's what makes a partner acceptable, and you begin to trust, and you begin to lower your guard and then provide and so on, where you begin to invest yourself within this marriage, with this relationship, without any doubts or qualms or questions anymore. That's what exists in Islam as the relationship between man and wife. There's not one place where it says man loves woman. There's no such thing in Islam. We don't have that. What we have is really commitment, and the unconscious begin to really, and the unconscious in Islam is a very complex concept. We call it ruh, right, or spirit. And then they exist, and in fact, they're communicating with each other far more than we sense, right? And they mesh, right? They somehow agree about terms of agreement, right? And they come and that's it, mesh, of course, provided it's accepted. When I say a woman is entitled for children and provisions, and I don't mean a woman is forced to get married. In Islam, there's no arranged marriages. Now, you hear about arranged marriages in Islam. There is no such thing. It is a setup, right? Somehow the word got mistranslated. It's a setup. Islam does a setup. You don't go about like hitting on women. Basically, it's in the matriarch of the families here and there and so on. And it begins with women. That tells you how important a woman is in Islam. It's really the marriage of her sons or daughters. It really begins with the woman's first, with the clan of the woman. Men eventually come in and then they do their job about verifications, background checking, and so on. Oh, background checking, we used to do that a long time ago. We don't just marry somebody because he's good looking or rich or something like that. We men go about, and ask each other, and they have like this unwritten database about what he does and his habits, and whether he's got something bad or something like that, and if there's something bad, regardless, men decline that marriage, right? But the final word, even if there's an approval, is for the woman, really. If man declares intentions for marriage, woman says yes or no. She looks and she talks. They're allowed to talk at that point, talk to each other, and so on, so on. If the woman feels that she's, committed, then she says yes, or she can say no, I don't want to, and then guess what? The father has an obligation in keeping his daughter and providing for her and so on until the next suitor comes, or she goes. Some women decide to go PhDs, some women decides to go become scholars, some women open business, some women, even the first wife of the Prophet Khadijah, she was a trader. Big businesswoman. She was a rich woman, and she actually is the one who commenced marriage with Prophet Muhammad. He was not married before that, and he was young, and he used to go work at her trade. Like one day he went to, that's before his mission, went to near Damascus, I think, or Palestine, in one of her trades of caravans of trade. And then he came back, and then afterwards she realized that he was someone she wanted, and she was older than he is. And she called and she said, she wants to marry that man. And he looked and talked and he accepted, and they became husband and wife. So to us, marriage is not someone that, you go and meet in the bar and here and there. Oh, no, it's a very lengthy process. Not lengthy, but very involved. A process of marriage is very involved. So back again, guarantees of a woman are there. Even a faithful husband, if a husband becomes starts to deviate, the two families and clans and so on, they straighten him out, and so does the woman, of course, right? So there's always that intervention of the wider, bigger family, right? And you have to observe the rule and so on and so forth. So the hijab also guarantees, and separation of the sexes guarantees the security of the married family, right? Three, sharing, there's sharing. Sharing meaningly at the olden days, and sometimes there's enough money. A woman is guaranteed her house and her children and her provision and so on, and man must also provide everything else, right? But sometimes there may be that other woman, right? Meaning a marriage, not like cheating. A man marries another woman, or up to a four. Outside of Islam, it used to be unlimited. No age is young, no age is old. And even still practiced here in the West, like the Mormons do marry more than one wife, actually. There's no limit on that. Two, polygamy is also in the West and in the East and in India and here and there. I mean, I've never done that myself, but I know of people, a lot of people who have secret loves and relationships and black books and so you guys that can't come and criticize us. Also, I want to tell you something about Shiism and Alawism, which is probably similar to Masonry. I think sometimes there's a saying that their life, those regime in Syria and those Shiites around the Middle East, oh man, oh man. Their sexual life and their family life, oh man, you don't want to even hear. Or if you do, no matter how liberal in your sexuality you are, you will begin to be disgusted by their ways and means and practices. I can tell you that myself. Okay, here's another point. That is this. Marriage is forbidden or not allowed for someone who cannot afford to provide for a family. Even if it's the first family, even if it's one wife, right? So unless you can provide, or don't get married. Now, this is not just dictated as a decree by religion, no, by the Prophet, but it's also enforced by people. Because a woman in Islam doesn't just go get married on her own, right? Find a partner and consider the circumstances. A woman must go through her guarantor, like father, like older brother or uncles if the father is not available. There are interdependencies and hierarchy. You may say this is treating the woman bad. No, that's protection for the woman, because some men come, and I've seen this all too often here in some cases where, like on investigation and so on and so forth, where a man comes and cheats the woman and convinces her that he's rich, blah, 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 blah. And then he turns out to be an imposter who's just out of jail, and she dies out, like in some kind of mysterious circumstances and so on. So not us, no, no. When a man marries a woman in our religion, in our culture, right, which is Islamic culture, he marries the entire clan, right? Meaningly, like while she's with you, while she's your wife, your children, and so on. And that becomes eventually less when the family is stable and there are children. It's not like it's daily watch, right? But then there's a watch, if in case there's abuse or anything else, the family intervenes right there and then. So it's not like we don't disconnect, so to speak. So, but that is not always true. Meaningly, if you're unable to provide yourself for the family, but your father is a very rich man, right? Then your father guarantees the marriage, right? Because you're his son, right? And then he wants you to get married and have children. But you have, like, you're down on your luck, you can't find a job or whatever it is to provide. And the father decides to take care of you as a family, he gives you money and so on and so forth. And then you can get married then, right? So long the provision comes from the same family. Do you remember that scene in Love Story when the son comes to see his father? He wants a loan, right? And then the father sits down on the table and he writes him a check. But then the son doesn't want to have anything to do with him. He just needed this money and he needs to go. And I think the actress, the girl who he was in love with was Ali McGraw. And in that relationship, you can have if you want to. If you don't want your father, to spend on you or anything else, fuck him, that's fine. But no, you're in Islam. While you can do that, it is you have an obligation to maintain family relationship and family respect and so on. Money-wise, you don't need to take from them. That's fine. Nobody, actually, it's admired that you become your own. However, if the father and not the brother, I wouldn't recommend the brother. If the father is able to provide, for you and your family, and guarantee you some kind of business and so on, so that's allowed, right? You can get married then, even if you on your own cannot provide that the means for marriage. So there's a structure of family support, support in the family. When you're married, you're not just married to this woman and that's it. The whole world is different. You're still connected, strongly connected to the rest of your family, to your clan. So in another word, Islam didn't just give us a belief and gigantic set of jurisprudence and new sciences and belief and police and universities and millions and millions of books focused on variety of subjects. But he gave us something else that people speak less of. Prophet Muhammad gave us the tribe, what was termed back then as the relationship of the womb, mother's womb. He didn't say the father's sperm. He said the mother's womb. That's the relationship, right? Meaningly, even though it's accounted on the father, right? So you're part of an extended family, right? Their well-being is your well-being. Their misfortune is your misfortune as well. So now that's not 100% enforced or has some punitive law to it, but ethically speaking, that's where you should become. That's where you should be. So that's an addendum, and let those East and West and whoever it is want to criticize Prophet Muhammad by lies, you can do all you want. Today you're gonna burn up like a torch against him. Tomorrow he will die down. You want to trample on his Quran? Well, go ahead. You want to burn it? Go ahead. It doesn't matter, folks, because the only reason for you doing so is because you heard things you never really realized yourself what's going on in there, or read it, or researched it, or tried to understand it. Because once you do, chances are you will convert. Have a nice day, my friends, and thank you for listening.